Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for making it here tonight. We have got a really good night lined up for you, and thank you very much for all your patience, because I know some of you have been waiting a while. We've had issues with technical equipment, and hopefully we won't have any more issues with technical equipment. Let's see, I'm just going to run through some upcoming events that are going on in the city, some techie kind of events that are coming up in the city, and then I'm going to hand you over to our MC for the night, which is MC Alistair. You may recognise him from television programmes such as Eggheads. So, sorry, I didn't want to mention it, but you're over it now. Okay. Okay, so running through some events, things coming up in the city. But before I do that, I should say the bar's going to be open until the break. The fire doors are there, and there is no fire alarm planned, thankfully. So if you do hear the alarm at the fire door, grab your bags first, obviously. So upcoming events this is Social Media Cafe Liverpool, obviously, so this is not really upcoming. This is now. Oh yeah, that is now, so you know that. But tomorrow night, we have the social media, social, techie, geeky, codey kind of creative night, which is going to be taking place at the Leaf Cafe from 8:30 onwards. So you can come and listen to £20 sounds. We might be able to play some of their music a bit later on, so you get the feel for it, and some soul and funk. And plus, hopefully, yeah, he said he would, but some special geeky performing guest, and he is quite geeky. That's tomorrow night. Sorry, and coming up on the coming up later next month is Jelly Liverpool, and that's on the 3rd of March. It's the first Thursday of every month. This one will be taking place at Leaf Cafe again on Bold Street. And if you haven't been along to one of those, it's for freelancers, that kind of thing, so you can get out of your bedrooms, spare room wherever you're working, come down, talk about the projects that you're working on, and generally work alongside other people for the day. If you're after more information, there's a bit.ly link there for Jelly Liverpool. And what else does 2011 hold? If you were here on Tuesday night, you'll have missed Ignite, where I spoke about this. But for those that weren't, there is Music Bar Camp. There's going to be a music bar camp coming up, and that's going to be Music on Conference / Bar Camp, and that's on Saturday the 23rd of April, and that's at Studio 2. And you can join in the discussion there. There's a little website I've thrown together for that at unconference.definitemedia.com. Come along, have a look at that. There's a bit of information there. It's not great. I've still got to do some work on it. And as you can see, it hasn't got a logo yet. So that's why it's not really finished. And I still need to do more work on it. But once this is out the way, then I can get on with that. And also, yeah, just get in touch if there's anything that you're interested in organising or interested in taking part in. Then get in touch and join up to the How I DIY network. There's a URL on the screen, and there's lots of groups on there doing various different things. So join up to that. Start, join up to some groups. Start a group of your own, get some conversation going. And that is it for me. Thank you. And tonight's Social Media Cafe team are Adrian McEwen, Andy Goodwin, Ella Redfers, and me, Andy, and Dan Lynch. And thank yous. Thank you to Open Labs for their help and assistance. And also thank you to John Moores University, whose building we are sitting in, and this presentations are going to be taking part in, for letting us use the space. And a big thank you to all our speakers. So, without further ado, I will hand you over to MC Alistair, and who will kick us off for the night.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all very much for coming along to the latest Social Media Cafe Liverpool. I'm Alistair Houghton from the Daily Post and Echo, and also for this week only, off the telly. I was captain of an Eggheads team, which was broadcast on Tuesday night, and for those of you who haven't seen it, we got royally spanked by the Eggheads. But it was very good fun anyway. I just thought I'd talk you briefly through tonight's lineup of fun and excitement. We start off with Pete Carr, who's going to make a big announcement. I won't say any more than that. I'll leave it up to Pete shortly. And then following on from that, we have Liverpool's very own favourite Mac guru, Dom McAllister, who I am semi-reliably informed is currently somewhere around the Falkland Islands. But he has very kindly done a video interview for us with technology broadcaster and entrepreneur Leo Laporte. It's only a short video interview, but after that we'll have a little bit of time to chat around some of the issues that are mentioned in it, so don't be shy. It looks like a lecture theatre, but it's meant to be an informal cafe. So please do ask questions of me, ask questions of anyone else in the audience. Let's make this as interactive as we can. We'll then have a short break, and we'll then resume with John McKerrell, who's going to talk us through iPhone apps. You gave me a funny look then, so I stopped. John McKerrell is going to talk us through iPhone apps. And then finally, we're going to have a chat on the telephone, so to speak, with Documentally, who I'm sure you all follow and you all know, Christian Payne, social media guru, video maker extraordinaire, and I'll be having a little chat to him about his life and his career and the exciting things that he's got up to. So without any further ado, for his exciting announcement, I'd like to welcome down Pete Carr.
Hello. Let me just do something with this. Okay, hopefully that doesn't fall off. Right. Let's do something. Okay. This should hopefully work. I'm doing the hello part, and my name's Pete Carr. Basically, I'm a photographer. I do landscapes, cityscapes, architecture, portraits, industry standard photography. I'm also a blogger. I do a weblog called Vanilla Days, which is one of the sort of top photo blogs in the country. It didn't technically win. It was a finalist in the recent Photo Blog Awards, and it's actually quite a popular site. And I've been doing that for about 6 years, and I've been blogging for about 10 years, off and on. If anyone was here last time when Stuart talked about blogging and things, he mentioned that it was just me and Art in Liverpool and Tim in the early days about blogging in Liverpool. And I'm also a bit of a geek, and I'm on Twitter at PeteMC. So first I'm going to talk about myself, which kind of is an introduction into what sort of leads into the project. And I've gone purple because that's trendy. So I might occasionally go purple a bit more. I guess the computer's as nervous as I am. Right, okay. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay, so basically, people scare me. So my talk isn't going to be amazing because you're currently all terrifying me, as you can see. And yeah, people basically, they're a bit scary. Even though I do portraiture and street photography and things, it's tricky because I'm quite scared of people. But that's because people are actually very scary. As you can see, you're out and about and you're trying to take someone's photo and this kind of thing happens. But yeah, people are basically scary, and that's why I'm scared of them. Which kind of leads me on to the internet and how I became a blogger and things like that. Basically, the internet lets, as I'm sure you know, being a social media cafe, the internet lets people chat without the social boundaries and the kind of normal problems that I'm having right now. If this was the internet, it'd be fine. I could just sit there and chat in some, IRC channel or something without any issues. So things like chat rooms and forums and Twitter, it lets people get along to some degree and just chat without issue and socialize and, talk to people. And that brings me on to the actual socializing thing. I just find it kind of interesting how we do socialize as a species, and how in the online there's no you don't have these boundaries. You can just chat to anybody, you can say anything. Whereas in the real world, just because there's a physical person in front of you, it's a lot harder to say things that you might want to say. Which I guess is why a lot of fights break out online, because it's so easy just to say what's on your mind without the consequences of being hit or something. And things like online gaming, people think that gaming is a sort of solitary activity you do alone in your bedroom, but you could be playing a game involving 30-odd people. So it's socializing, but it's not socializing. It's all quite strange when you kind of think about it all. And basically, I'm a shy person, and I do find it easier to chat online, play online games. I was never any good at football, but I was a lot better at computer games, because I guess it's just easier. I find it easier to tweet than meet. It's just so much easier to do that, to sit at home or sit anywhere. Actually, you could just be sitting in a cafe or something, chatting to everyone in the cafe through Twitter, and that would be a lot easier for me to some degree. But as a photographer, I'm actually a less shy person, which is a weird thing. As a photographer, I can't really afford to be scared of things. If a client says, go up a tall building and stand on top of it and take a photo of something, that's what I have to do, and I'm scared of heights, so it's a bit odd. If a client says go out into the street and take portraits of people, then that's what I do. It's kind of weird. You give me a camera, and off I go. I've got to capture the moment, basically, because I don't like to regret things. So with a camera, I just go out, take the shot, and it's done. So things like this, for example, that was me hanging out of a helicopter with the door open and a cameraman in the way, so I had to lean over the cameraman, and I'm scared of heights. So it was kind of a bit scary, but because I was doing everything through a camera, there's that sort of safety element to it in a way. I was only viewing things through that sort of small box. So it's quite easier to do the job. So yeah, photography just gives me that kind of thing. It just takes away the fear in a way. Yeah, so moving on to strangers, and as I was saying, being a photographer, it gives me a reason to chat to people. If I'm out on the street and I see an interesting looking person, well, that's it. But if I'm a photographer, if I'm out on the street and see an interesting looking person, I can go up and I can ask for their picture. And I'm just not wanting to miss those moments. Someone will walk past and something might happen and I'll take the picture, because if I don't, the moment passes, I can never go back in time and take that picture. So photography gives me this great ability. Which leads me on to a project that I started. Over the years, I've done projects, one called 800, which was for Liverpool's 800th birthday. And that project involved, it was one day, 8 photographers, 800 portraits on Liverpool's 800th birthday. 8 of us basically went out all around the city, not just the city centre, it was all around Liverpool, and we just asked people for portraits. Because we had basically 8 hours to do it in, we had that one day, there was a lot of pressure, so you couldn't be scared of anything, you just had to go out and get the pictures. And in 2009 I did a similar project called Fab Faces, without as much pressure. It was just basically go out, take portraits. And because of those, I found out about this other project called 100 Strangers. And the point of that is to photograph as it sounds, 100 strangers. But the difference of this project to the other projects is that the emphasis is more on interesting people. So it's not just seeing someone on the street and taking a photo and running away and hiding. You've got to chat to them and get their story and sort of try and get these interesting stories. So the picture's got to be good, but then there's also got to be this element of stories. And I started doing this last year. And as I say, there was the emphasis on real stories about real people. For example, this is a woman I met in New Brighton at the Remembrance Sunday event. And she was there to pay her respects to people that she had lost during World War II. And it was just a really interesting woman to chat to, and just took her portrait. This is a girl that I met on St. Patrick's Day. It's not often you see someone sort of busking with a harp. So I just had to stop and have a chat with her about what she was up to. And essentially, she was going between gigs and had time to kill, so she stopped on St. Patrick's Day and played the harp for a bit. And this is a woman I met at the bombed-out church. And she was openly breastfeeding in public. And at first I kind of thought, she's not going to want her photo taken. And she'll probably think I'm a bit weird. But we got chatting, and she was perfectly happy for me to take a photo. And she basically said that she'd be more ashamed to give her baby a bottle than to actually breastfeed in public. She felt it was such a strong connection. So basically, people are scary. They really quite scare me. But they're also very, very interesting. You can go out and take photos of landscapes, and generally a landscape won't change over 100 years. But people can change from day to day or hour to hour. As a photographer, it's a great thing. So I wanted to share this with people in an engaging way. So, skipping to the end, basically, having a camera gave me a reason to talk to strangers. I wanted to pass that on to others, and I thought it'd be interesting to break out the traditional photography exhibition format instead of just pictures on a wall sort of thing. Do you guys want to sit down? Okay. Could be here hours. Right. So, yeah, it leads me on to the actual point of why I'm here tonight, which is called Res. What is it? Essentially, it's using social media to interact with photography. It lets people encounter each photo in the location where it was taken. So instead of just going to a gallery and seeing nice photos of people with their story, the point of this project is to get people out and right to the place where it was taken, instead of just going to New York and seeing some photos of people taken in France or something. Why? Well, mobile phones and computers and things, they connect people online, but can these devices do it in the real world? Can use the technology that we've all got that makes us chat online and everything, can we use that in a different way to sort of connect people in the real world instead? We've got brilliant phones and devices that allow us to do all these crazy things, like everyone chatting on Twitter and everything, and everyone here could, well, actually some people do seem to be chatting on Twitter right now, and it's a great thing. But in some ways, all you're doing is you're sitting in a room with loads of people, going outside that room onto the internet to then chat to them. It's a bit odd in some ways. So hopefully, this project is going to show that you can use modern technology to connect with people in reality instead of just connecting with them online. Because the internet is a very valid way of connecting with people in the real world. It's not just a way for us to all follow everybody and like things on Facebook and everything. Maybe I still haven't made the point clear. Essentially, the ultimate aim of the project really is to provoke discussion on the way that we interact as a species. I'm not kind of setting out to pose a question to the world and then answer the question. I'm basically just saying, okay, well, we've got all this technology. what can we do with it, and how can we use it, and can we use it in different ways. So this project's going to take people right onto the streets and interact with the subjects of their photographs instead of just putting them in a gallery in an empty white room. It's about connecting the real world to the virtual and blurring the lines between them. So, Res. Why did I call it Res? Well, as I mentioned, I'm a bit of a geek. Res is essentially the process of transferring your real self into the digital world, and it's from Tron. So if anyone knows Tron, they'll probably have a bit of an understanding. And as I said, I'm a bit of a geek. So what I plan to do is go up to people and ask them to take their photo, I think. No, I'm not asking them to take their photo, that's wrong. I'm going to take their photo. And then I'm going to put it online with Twitter and a few other social media sites so people can say hi. So essentially, Twitter will interact with these people. Then I'm going to GPS tag it as well, so people in the real world can then actually interact with these people. I'm going to be using an iPhone. Goala is going to do all the GPS location stuff. There's an app called Layr that I'm using, which is a little buggy, but hopefully it's going to do the job that I want. And I'm going to use Twitter, and I'm going to use Tumblr, all these social networking things, all to hopefully build an end product in some ways. Right, so the iPhone. It's all going to be done with an iPhone. I'm going to take the photo, process the photo, do everything just through the iPhone. It just makes the point that you don't need a stupidly large camera and loads of fancy technology. You just need a simple everyday phone. I'm going to use Goala. If you're not familiar with Goala, it's like Foursquare. It's the whole checking into places for no apparent reason, just saying, look, I'm here in a coffee shop, aren't I cool? So I'm going to use Goala to create hotspots around the city. I'll check in with that hotspot and then leave some information about that person there. I'll leave a photo and perhaps their name and what they were up to. And eventually then I'll build a trip with Goala. So using that app, you'll be able to walk around the city, essentially like a pub crawl without the pubs and without the crawling, and just wander around and meet these people. And the beauty is it also allows others to engage with the project because they can leave comments or even take photos and leave them in the same places. Comments, photos. The really cool part, hopefully, is something called Layr, which is an augmented reality browser. With this, you can see the Goala hotspots, and essentially, if you don't know what augmented reality is, it's you hold your iPhone up, uses the camera, and then on the display it overlays information onto the actual display. So if I hold the phone up, and then on the display you'll actually see like all the Goala hotspots, and you can kind of move around, and it will say like there's a coffee shop over there, you move around that way and it says there's a pub over there, and it's really cool. The idea being with this project is that you'll go onto the street using Layr, you'll hold up the phone and you'll actually see this person in the virtual world, but it's also the real world, so it kind of completely blurs the lines between the two worlds, sort of using this magical device in a way to see into the internet, but then you're actually seeing back onto the real world, so it's all crazy magic. I'm going to be using hashtags on Twitter. The tag is #resd, and essentially that's just to build discussion, because the project's launching tonight, hopefully, if I've got time. And I'm going to ultimately end up with hopefully an exhibition when Look 11, the photography festival, when that opens in May 13th, I think it is. So over the next few weeks I'm going to be taking people's photos and building this exhibition, but also building discussion around it, hopefully. And I'll be using Tumblr, which is going to be the website for it. That will import all the Goala check-ins, so you can go onto the website and you can see the latest place that I've been and the latest person I've photographed. Hopefully it'll import the Twitter hashtag, so you can actually see the discussion that's going on. And it's also got its own hashtag support, so you can sort of click on a button and then see if anyone else on Tumblr is talking about the project. So this is sort of like, if you don't really want to be sort of a Gowalla kind of check-in person, you can just follow the project on its own. You don't need to have these things, although obviously it's great to have them. So if I've got time, I'd like to do a demo and actually start the project. So do I have time? Yeah. Cool, okay. I was kind of hoping you'd say, no. Right, so I'm going to need a volunteer, and it's someone I don't know. I probably should have set this up with someone. It doesn't hurt. It's very easy. Okay, cool. Yep. So you have to come on down and stuff. Right. So hopefully this works. I've never actually tried it on anyone yet. Okay. So I'm going to need my camera first. And actually, it might be all right if you just sit in this seat, because it'll be nicely lit then. Right. So, as I say, my phone, camera thingy, and then I'll just try and take your photo in hopefully a good way. Yeah. Now we have to wait a few minutes because it processes the photo and everything. So what's your name? Simon. Hello. I am Pete. It'd be silly to ask you what you're doing here tonight. Right. Let's hope this is done quickly. I probably should have bought some music for an interlude. Right. Hey, cool. That actually works. Okay, so there's the picture. Right. So now what I do is go to the Gowalla app, and actually I just have to turn the Wi-Fi on, so this might take a bit longer. I really hope this bit works, because it'll be... I'll just give it a few seconds, see if it fetches the picture. And if it does, it'll be cool. If it doesn't, yeah, I'll just... Right, okay. It's just fetching the information now, so hopefully it'll be all right. It's just taking a long time to fetch it. Yeah, it didn't work. Okay, well, I've got one last slide, which is hugely interesting. Yeah, you can go. Yeah, the end. Yeah. It might work later on.
All right. We just thought we'd see if anyone wanted to ask Pete some questions. I'll start if no one else does. Just as a matter of curiosity, you say You're going to go around the city and find interesting people.
Yeah.
How do you define an interesting person?
Someone that catches my eye, basically. Obviously, that's dependent on my eye, essentially. It's just people that are interesting. You know, they might be wearing cool clothes. I've met some rock people, sort of heavy metal kind of people from, I think it was Poland, or Italy it was, yeah. Met them once. So yeah, just people that catch you around the street, you know, just that really. Get chatting to them and hopefully they'll agree to be part of it.
Any other questions?
Oh, is it on? Hey. Sorry, was there somebody
there was someone over there, yeah.
Okay, they can wait. Although we haven't been able to get the technology to work, is it so with Layr, whatever it's called?
Yeah.
That I've taken off my phone. So you'll be holding your phone up, and it will superimpose the image over the actual place where the image was taken.
Yeah. Annoyingly, it's got absolutely no points of interest at all. So it can't even show you some other bit. You know, essentially, it can just show you there's a camera on an iPhone. It is meant to come up with some person floating around in the virtual world. No, it's just...
But as yet, not.
No.
So how many images is it that you're going to take for the project?
I'm just going to take... Well, I'll probably take a few for my own use and sort of... You know, but I'll be only uploading one picture, which will be the same one that's going to be on the different apps and hopefully exhibited.
Okay, brilliant. And you'll be able to, so you're plotting it on Tumblr and we'll be able to follow the route?
Yeah. So if you don't have an iPhone or any phone like that, and you just want to be interested in the project, you can just go onto Tumblr and see what people are doing with it and see what I'm doing with it. Just hopefully it'll build over the next few weeks.
Brilliant.
Was there another question? Sorry?
What's your Layr called?
Oh, good point. I'd forgotten about that. It's called Moby Picture. M-O-B-Y Picture, yeah.
One more question from anyone? No? Oh.
Ooh. Sorry? Well, yeah, Goala is exactly like Foursquare. I don't know which came first, Goala or Foursquare. I think they came out about similar times. They sort of both exploded about this time last year at South by Southwest in America, because loads of people were checking in. But then Foursquare just gained so much more momentum. It's got millions of users now, or hundreds of thousands, whereas Goala just doesn't have the support. But Goala is more of a fun app in a way. Using Foursquare is a bit like, I've checked in here, and that's it. But Goala, you can drop things in places, and you can kind of, you can drop off a cup of coffee, or randomly, I've got a beatnik poet that I picked up in Brighton, I think. So I picked him up down south, and I brought him up to Liverpool, so I can drop him anywhere in Liverpool. Someone else can then find the beatnik poet, pick him up, and take him somewhere else. So, yeah, they are basically the same concept, but done in two different ways. But I'm not using it for that purpose, really. I'm using it for, hopefully, to sort of say, you can use these technologies in completely different ways. Because a lot of people just say, what's the point in Foursquare? You're just checking in, you're just saying, I'm at a train station. Hopefully, this project will show that you can use these kind of social location apps to do other things. Hopefully.
Brilliant. Pete Carr, thank you very much indeed.
Okay. Thanks.
Brilliant, and now it's time for our next presentation, which is a video this time round, as Neil furiously fiddles. We have Dom McAllister, everyone's favourite Mac guru, who, as I say, is now somewhere in the South Atlantic on a big ship. And he interviewed for us recently Leo Laporte. We're going to see that interview in just a moment, and then, like I say, afterwards, if you want to pick up on any of the points raised in it, we can have a little chat before we go for a break. But here, in just a moment, is Dom McAllister.
Hi, this is Dom McAllister from Wavertree, and I'm here at Andy G's request to record a small clip for the social media club at Liverpool. Now, you might listen in the background. I'm actually in South America. I'm at the Iguazu National Park, and that's the Iguazu Falls behind. I've been in San Francisco for a week doing Macworld, and then this week we're still on vacation. Next week we're on a Macmania cruise, and it's all because of being a professional podcaster, a lot of which is due to being sort of active in the social media circles. But anyway, the reason for this particular clip is that Andy asked me to grab a few interviews with various people. It was a bit hectic last week, so to be honest, the only one I really got to grips with was a guy called Leo Laporte. Now, Leo is the owner of quite a successful podcast network. He started off in traditional radio and TV, but branched into podcasting probably about 2 or 3 years ago, and he has his own podcast network. That consists of a dedicated studio in Petaluma, in California, where he runs probably about a dozen to 18 different shows throughout the week. Now, they've just had to move to some brand new premises where they're going to have a multi-studio complex, but I caught up with him just before Macworld at the cottage up in Petaluma, and did this quick interview. I'll show you a clip of the show that he does called Macworld Weekly, and then I'll run the clip. It's only a short 2 or 3 minute clip, but it gives some views on what social media is all about.
It's time for Mac Break Weekly. It's a couple of days before Macworld Expo, and we're going to have a preview for you with Paul Kent, the man who organizes this, the 27th annual Macworld Expo. Coincides with the 27th birthday of the Macintosh. We'll talk about that too next on Mac Break Weekly. Macasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Okay, this is Leo Laporte at the studio here in the cottage, and I just wanted to ask Leo his thoughts on social media and how it impacts the whole Twit network.
Well, one of the things that's true about the new media that we do is I sometimes say, instead of building an audience like old media did, we want to build a community. So it's really, the two-way communication is really important to us. It's one of the reasons we do a lot of our shows live, is we really want people who are watching to have that feedback right away. So for me, what that means is social media empowers that. And some of it's kind of old school social media. We do an IRC chat room that's fantastic. It allows our audience to interact with us. There's usually almost as many as 1,000 people in there. They're on there right now, in fact, you can show them. And so they're constantly, or they're up on the screen as well, they're constantly talking to us about what they're seeing, what they're saying. That's social media to me, is something as old-fashioned as IRC. We certainly use Twitter and Facebook and so forth. I tweet all the time.
Yeah, you have a personal...
I have a personal Twitter.
You do it yourself rather than...
Oh gosh, yeah. I kind of have mixed feelings about Twitter. I actually think it's more of a broadcast medium than a medium for conversation. And it's funny because I think it's meant to be that way. For a while, I was pushing, let's go to Jaiku, or let's go to FriendFeed, or let's go to Google Buzz, where they have threaded conversations. It really is possible to have a conversation. And nobody really wanted that. I think people really like kind of the broadcast, read-only nature of Twitter. You follow the right people, and you get a stream of very interesting stuff. Flipboard on the iPad's a very good example of that. They've been able to make a magazine based solely on following tweets. So I think in some ways, Twitter is not like IRC. It's not a conversational medium. It's a broadcast medium. Facebook's much more conversational. Although, again, I think people use it primarily as they use Twitter to follow kind of pundits or celebrities. They use Facebook to follow their friends in the same kind of way. And so, again, it's kind of a read-only medium. You can like and comment, and some of that does happen. But I don't know about you, but for the most part, when I read a feed on Facebook, I'm reading it. I'm not interacting with it that much. And I think, in a way, that's easier for people to understand and utilize. It takes less of their energy. So when we say social media, and when we usually think of Twitter and Facebook when we say social media, I don't know how social it really is. IRC is much more social in a lot of ways.
Okay, thanks very much, Leo.
Brilliant. Leo Laporte there, speaking to our very own Dom McAllister. And I should say, by the way, if you want to ask a question or make a comment, if you can wait for Magic Dan to appear with the microphone, so then everyone on the internet can hear you, that would be grand. Anyone want to make any comments or say anything about the video they've just seen and what Leo Laporte had to say? For example, about Twitter, do we agree with him that Twitter is primarily a broadcast tool rather than the conversation tool, which we're all told it is? Does anyone have any thoughts?
I've got a comment, as soon as I'm stood with the mic. He mentioned that nobody wants conversation on Twitter. They only want to, talk about how cool they are and broadcast things. But I'm not sure that's true. I regularly get into long kind of, it'll be in 140 character segments, but I get into long conversations with people on Twitter. I think it's a bit more than just a broadcast medium.
I think it's a response medium is what I'd say. It's always interesting when you look at people's feeds as in you just go to their page. Someone like me, and I'm slightly guilty about this, I tend to just say stuff. Some people's feeds, though, will just all be at replies to people. Not necessarily a long conversation, I guess, but I think the call and response side of things is a fairly interesting aspect of it. It's what I enjoy anyway. Dan Stewart is on.
To be honest, I think the thing with Twitter is it depends whether you actually you start using a client or not. People who just visit the Twitter website do seem to see it as a broadcast thing, simply because the actual process of using the Twitter website is quite laborious at times. Whereas if they start using something like TweetDeck, the minute they download TweetDeck, it looks more like a chat room. And you've got the various columns and whatnot, and so you immediately just start replying to people. That's what happened to me. I signed up to Twitter in something like 2000. Quite early on, actually, didn't use it for a year, and then somebody said, "Oh, you're using TweetDeck." I went, "No." Downloaded it, and I've been doing it a lot.
I think the same is true for me, because I think when I first signed up to Twitter, it was at work, and therefore I logged on at work, which is a painfully slow process anyway in our system, and then just sent out things occasionally, and then stopped. As soon as I got an iPhone, as soon as I actually got something I could play with on it, at that point, you do things like sit here and have Twitter conversations with someone who's sat 10 yards away or whatever it is. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a different way of engaging. Anyone else? And it's all gone quiet. Well, in that case, we will almost move on to the break, but not quite, because we have an extra special bonus speaker for you. Francis is going to come down here now, and he's going to talk about the first international Twitter 10K run. Is that right?
This is going to be very quick. I'm going to give a live demonstration of using social media by sending one tweet, which has an advert for what I'm advertising. And I'm going to read it first so you can get it before it appears on Twitter. And it says, "Runner, join the first international #tweetrun 10K. Sunday the 27th of Feb, 11 a.m. your time zone. http://bit.ly/blah. I've tagged it with #MCLive, so you can find it. So this is Hakeem and I are running the London Marathon, and not the London Marathon, the Liverpool Half Marathon at the end of March. And part of the training program needs a 10K run on that date. So we've decided to make it an international event on Twitter where anyone can run in their own time zone. So if you could retweet the tweet that I just did on #MCLive, especially if you know any runners, and if you're a runner yourself, then join us in Liverpool as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. We're going to take a break now for about 20 minutes or so, but join us afterwards. We've got John McKerrell who's going to be talking to us about iPhone apps, and then we're going to get Documentally, who I think is in the wilds of Cambridgeshire at the moment.
That's the quick look. He's at, he was at iSlip Garage, and now he's at Buckton Towers, back at base, he says.
Already made it home. Well, there we go. He's back home, which means he's almost ready to talk to us. I'll be sort of interviewing him, and hopefully more than that, letting him speak about his rather interesting social media journey from Iraq to Cambridgeshire and beyond. So if we could all gather again in about 20 minutes, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, good evening, everyone. Again, thank you all for coming back from the bar after the break. And we'll head straight in to our next speaker. So we'd like to welcome on stage with a little round of applause, Mr. John McKerrell.
I picked up too many things, so I might have to go back to my beer at some point. I'm here to tell you about iPhone apps. So a little bit about my experience. I've actually had 50 apps on the App Store, which I'd like to point out. It's quite a big number. Quite a few of them are repeated. Not all of them are live now. There's pretty much 10 different types of apps. So I've got a fair bit of experience, I like to think. So if you want to go through the life cycle of an iPhone app, we first kind of need to have an idea. Remember the idea, not the man. The quote from V for Vendetta, saying that the idea is the important thing. It will outlive the man. So you need to have the idea there. So I can't really tell you how to think of an idea for an iPhone app, but a few suggestions on think of something unique, think of something useful, or think of something fun. I also want you to remember, though, you can't kiss an idea. You can't touch it or hold it. So the idea is very important, but so is the man. You need someone who can develop an idea for you, who can put it together, the implementation is also quite important. There's a little link there on that page that you can read if you go away. It's about because you do get, as an iPhone developer, you often get people saying, I've got this great idea, it's going to make millions. Do you want to come in with me? I'll give you 1%. It's like, oh, but 1% of a million is lots of money. I'm like, well, yes, but you've come up with the idea, I'm going to then spend 6 months coding it. So there needs to be a bit of give and take there. Just if you are thinking of going on a revenue share with someone, then maybe keep that in mind. So, we need an idea. How about a social media cafe Liverpool app? That'd be nice. So, first thing you might want to do is research similar apps. So, we've got TED Talks. TED Talk is an event in America. They have lots of inspirational speakers. It's really good. We've got Biennial, which is obviously the arts event in Liverpool. And so, these are both apps around events, so we can take some inspiration from these. As you can see, they've got, along the bottom, they both have some sort of categorization of the type of content that you can see. They both have lists of the content, so you choose a type of content, you get a list of what's available, and then you also get detail about an individual item of content and that sort of thing. So these are some ideas you might want to implement in our app. Also, you have things like search in the TED app, your favourites. On the Biennial one, you also get, along with events, you can get a map related to the Biennial. You can find images, so there's other things that are separate from, for instance, the Biennial is separate from the exhibitions. So there's other things along with the items that you're looking at. And go away and brainstorm. I love whiteboards. We moved into an office 6 months ago. I've now got 3 whiteboards in there, and that was very important to me that we had lots of whiteboards. Some of these are related to the to iPhone apps, some of them are related to other apps that I've done over time. So we did some brainstorming, come up with some thoughts about what should go into this iPhone app for social media cafe. Well, we've got a list of talks, similar to the TED and Biennial app, a list of talks, description of the talks, so the detail about the talk, actions, so you might want to look at the video, you might want to look at the slides, you might want to look at photos from various social media cafes, all sorts of things like that. Come up with all these ideas, and then you need to start prioritising. So obviously you've got thousands of ideas of what can go into this app. You've only got so much time, you really need to work out what's going to go in the version 1. What are you going to put in the first step? So how about a list of talks, the description of the talk, and then some actions. We'll keep it fairly simple for this first version. So kind of like the TED talk and the TED app and Biennial, we'll keep it fairly simple. List of talks. So this would be previous social media cafes. Each one generally has 3 talks. Put a list of talks in there and you can go and have a look through them. Make lists. I find this really important. Task lists are just really useful. It's quite easy to come into a project and start coding and think, oh, I wanted to do all of this stuff, and start typing away, start coding, and then a week later you don't know what you've done, you don't know what you've got left to do. So make lists. Make a big list of what needs to happen, and then you can start the day. You don't have to think, what am I going to do today? You just look at this website and it tells you. Go away, do that, come back, market's fixed, look at the next one. Keep doing that. You don't even have to think about it. Makes it so much easier. You just don't think about doing a project. You go through its list, implement each thing, at the end of it, the app's done. So before you start building an app, there are a few things that you will need. You have to have a Mac, which is kind of unfortunate, but to do iPhone development, you have to have a Mac. You also need to get Xcode and the SDK, so you need to get the software that you would use to build an app. You don't necessarily need an iPhone or an iPad or anything like that, and you don't necessarily need to pay Apple any money, but if you want to install the app onto any device or get it on the App Store, you will have to have membership to get it on the App Store. You will need a device, obviously, if you want to test it on a device. Before you start designing an app, you have to read the human interface guidelines from Apple. These are, it's I think 20 to 50 pages document that tells you pretty much what you have to do if you're building an iPhone app. Now it is possible to not necessarily follow these to the letter, but Apple can be quite picky. So things like, if you're using images that Apple have provided, you must use them in a specific way. And just, like I say, ways to make the idea behind it is that people don't install an app on their iPhone and look at it and have no idea how to run it. It's important that apps are similar and they know that, well, there's a back button in the top left, there's tabs across the bottom, this is all. I know that's how this works because it's how it works in the iPod app, or I know that if I click this little icon on the bottom right, it's going to create a message because that's what happens in the mail app. So keeping things similar. There are reasons that you might want to not make things different, and that's fine, but generally you try and keep things similar. So an example I have is an app I built that had the screen would spin round and show content kind of on the other side. And I wanted to put a button press to do this, so I used this icon, which is a standard Apple icon, and it's kind of got an arrow with a box on it, so I thought that's like a phone spinning round. Apple rejected the app when I did that because this is a specific app icon that Apple have for actions. So you've probably seen this in, if you have an iPhone, you'll see this in the mail app. So I think it's like you click that and it pops up reply forward. It's not spin the thing around. So they rejected me for that. I did that icon, which is completely different, but it's mine, I did it, and they let me through. So you have to be aware of these things because it's annoying if you get rejected, as I might go into a bit more later. Again, before you start actually coding, if you're going to start writing code for your app, there's 2 documents you should read. And again, this is just instructions about how you should do things and ways to not get rejected. So for instance, if you have an app and it needs network for everything it does, and you don't check that there's a network connection there, your app starts and like nothing happens. Users aren't going to like that and they're going to find it strange. Even if you have a spinny icon on there, if it just sits there going for 5 minutes, that again is going to confuse people. So it makes suggestions like make sure that if the internet fails or the location services, the GPS fails, you pop up a message and say, this isn't working, you need to go outside, you need to make sure your internet connection is working, that sort of thing. So that's kind of to signify that if there is no internet connection, you have to be aware of this and handle it. So just little things you have to keep an eye on. So if you're going to design an app, I'm not a designer, I will point out, I'm completely a coder, but there are some things I've learned along the way. It is best to, it's definitely easiest to just stick with Apple's UI. They make the SDK provides a nice UI and nice graphics, so it's easy enough to make a good looking app. And you shouldn't really veer too much from that. And if you are going to veer from that, don't sort of do lots of custom graphics, which look, I don't know, really funky graphics, cartoony graphics, and then stick a really dry iPhone UI in the middle of it, because it just won't look good. Either go completely custom with nice cartoony graphics, or use standard UI. Look at their apps. Obviously, just download other apps, try them out, see what they've done, and just learn from their experiences. Learn what they've done and implement it in your own apps. And there are lots of free resources out there. So there's graphics you can get, there's Photoshop files that have like a picture of an iPhone, and then you can draw within that iPhone, and you know that it's going to fit an actual iPhone. So things like that just make it easy to design for iPhones. So an example, Facebook pretty much uses the standard Apple UI. The buttons in the middle are custom to them, so they're a bit more following their own branding. The colours and the navigation bar and that, they're following the branding and the logo. But the app looks like an iPhone app, it's fairly simple. This is an app by Dave Bower, an iPhone developer in Chester. He did this app called Balloons, and this is quite different. So this is quite cartoony. But like I say, it's completely custom, so it's very cartoony. There's no random square button in the middle of the cartoony graphics. But it's fairly simple and easy to understand. These at the bottom are just buttons, you tap them. The things you can see there are basically like luggage tags that hang off balloons that you float into the internet, and then you can catch them later. It's quite cute. And so with that, you flick the luggage tag. So that's an interesting little action, but it's not. It's the type of thing people understand and are aware of in the iPhone. And then things like games. Games tend to have just completely bespoke interfaces. I mean, they'll have buttons to get to the menus, but you don't have a bird flying across in the mail app. That's fairly unusual. If you're coding, fairly normal coding techniques apply. You should write modular code, make sure you can reuse it, make sure you can put it into other projects. Don't sort of write from scratch every time you make a project. On the iPhone, this is easier because you have multiple separate screens, so if you can take that screen and reuse it somewhere else, it's quite similar. If you happen to want luggage tags in a mail app, Dave could take that and reuse it, something like that. You can take out parts within the screen, so there are custom views within the screen that can be reused, and potentially a whole app, if it is fairly generic, can be made into a template and be reused. There is lots of existing open source stuff out there, so again, don't reinvent the wheel. If someone else has done it, they've probably done it better, and if they haven't, then the 5 other people who got involved with the project have probably made it better. So use open source when you can. There's 2 there that I mentioned. 320 was the basis for the Facebook app, and Facebook open source, so anybody can make apps like that. And TapCoo is another one, has various aspects to it. It has the cover flow, so that's the 3D sort of cover art that shows up in the iPod when you rotate it and flick it from side to side. It looks quite nice. So Hierarchy app is an app I wrote in June last year. It was supposed to show, if you have a selection of content and you want to show it in an app, you want to show it in a hierarchy, you want to show more detail about the app, that sort of thing. It's based on the iPod, so you have across the bottom of the iPod, that would be artists, albums, genres, that sort of thing, and that would be a list of artists or something like that. It was based on that, but I tried to make it quite generic. I thought I could use it in a few apps. Oh yes, and you can configure it with just, because it's quite a generic app, all you have to do is change some XML files and you can have a completely new app. So just some text files, you can change the text files, you have a whole new app that does something completely different. It's quite nice. You get a really basic, detailed screen about the item. So this, my demo app within that is a books app. This is Children of Men by P.D. James, so it gives you the title and then selection properties. Fairly simple, nothing particularly interesting. You can also give it a HTML page to show instead of that, and then you can have anything in there. And that's actually the HTML from Wikipedia that I've kind of stolen. But the links in there do work, so you can also have it linking off to an embedded web browser, so the links work. So I've used that app on an app 7 Digital. They're a large MP3 store based in London, and they wanted an app that would download tracks. So with 7 Digital, you buy your tracks, they go to your locker, you can then use them in multiple places. So this app downloads your locker, you have these tracks, or these albums, and then you can download the tracks to your phone and then you play them offline. So I built this app, and it's all based on this hierarchy app thing. You have the interesting custom list there with images in it, and then you have, instead of an item detail, you actually have a place where you can play an MP3. So how about we use that to build a social media cafe app? So we'll start off with an app, it's got nice branding there. We want to, obviously the content's going to change on a fairly regular basis. Every couple of months there's another event, so we want to be able to upload the content when we start the app. Have a list of topics, all the topics of different talks we have. Have a list of the events you can drill down, so perhaps you clicked on Alison Gow, and then you want to find out what event she spoke about. You see she spoke in June 2010. You find out information about her talk. She spoke about data visualization, a bit of an overview about the talk, a bit of a bio about her, list of actions that you might want to do, so you can look at the slides, you can look at her Twitter page, you can look at the video. And all of those actions open in an embedded web browser, which is essentially, it's as good as Safari. It's not actually Safari on the phone, but it's as good as Safari, and it's embedded within the app, so you can get back to the app quite easily. And that's the slide share, so that's the slides from the talk. So you go away, build, write your app. After a while, put it all together, you finish. So, what's next? Well, you want to get it onto a device. You want to test it on an actual phone. So to do that, you did sign up for the developer program, didn't you? I said it was optional. To get it onto a device, you'll have to sign up. And for that, you have to pay, I think it's $80, something in that area, so just under 60. Well, it's just under £60, probably a bit more than $80. You have to collect all the device IDs from the phones. So if you plug the phone into your computer, you have Xcode, you can get a device ID from Xcode, or you can get it from iTunes. You load it up, you click on the phone, you have to option click on just click on the number that's there, which isn't the UDID, and it turns into the UDID. You get your device IDs, you upload them to iTunes Connect, and then you have to generate various profiles. Once you have them installed, you can either install onto your own phone from your computer, or you can ad hoc install, which means you generate a copy of the app that you can email to people. So it's not like if you made a normal computer program, you can send it to someone and they can just run it. You have to go through these hoops because Apple are quite controlling about how you can run apps, but it works eventually. You can only do 100 devices with this. You couldn't use this as a way to send apps out to lots of people. To get it onto the App Store, again, you have to be with the program. You create more provisioning profiles. You go onto iTunes Connect, so that's the way they manage apps. It's actually the way they manage music tracks. It's quite interesting. People from like EMI have been going on there and putting up new tracks and stuff, and now I'm using it as a trace. You put in various information about the app. The keywords are very important. You can only enter the keywords when you're submitting an app. So if you get it wrong, you'll have to submit a new version and it'll need to be reviewed before you can change them. So that's what it looks like. Just so let's pretend to put various information about the Social Media Cafe app. Once you've done all that, you go into Xcode, you do build an archive, then you click submit. It's really simple and it just goes straight up. Little gotcha if you have a space in your name. So I have one called Chess Bureau, space in the middle of Maths, GCSE and driving test. They're slightly different. You have to do them a different way. And then you wait. So currently the review process takes about 7 to 10 days. It varies before Christmas when they know lots of people are submitting and they know they'll make lots of money if they bought out to Christmas. They cut it down to a couple of days. If it's an update to an existing app, it generally takes just a day or two, so that is a bit quicker. And you hope, because Apple, they might not like your app, they might not like how you've done things, it might get rejected, it can happen. But if you're lucky, well, while you're waiting, you can be getting other things ready. So if you want to market your app when you're done, this is an app again by Dave Bower, and he does some really nice marketing for his app. So you do a website, you do lots of big screenshots, you tell people what it does. Also balloons, he's done lots of press releases, and that's a little video, so you can see the video about how the app works. People can get to know your app even before it's on the store. And then finally, Apple approves. They've said yes, it can go on the store. Once it's there, straight away people, well, unless it's a really boring app, people will start downloading it. You can track how you're doing. This is the interface that Apple gives you, so you can see how you're doing. So this was an app. I had this cam viewer, so it's a webcam viewer. It went live on the 1st of February, and you can see lots of people downloaded it. It tailed off a little bit, but still plenty of people downloading it. There's also a program called AppViz, which is brilliant for doing this sort of thing. Gives you all sorts of graphs that show you by country, by area. Wonderful. This is iFeed postcode, which is another one. This is my first iPhone app. And also charting success. So if you're very lucky, you'll get into the top 100 downloads. My basic sat-nav has been in the top 20 of the UK navigation section, so I have to get quite specific there. But it has been in the top 20 of the UK navigation section for pretty much the whole time it's been around. And it's doing all right in a few other countries because I've recently launched a Spanish translation. That's something you should be aware of. If you do translate your app, you have more chance of getting sales in other countries. There's also something called App Annie. Which monitors your charts, it monitors your downloads, it does lots of things. You have to give it your password to iTunes Connect, which is a little unfortunate, but it is a great way of managing your apps and managing your success with your apps. If you're lucky, you might make some money. Apple do take 30% cut, which is a fair bit, but they do kind of make it very easy for people to spend money. It's so easy with an iPhone to just, all you have to do is type in a password, and then the next time you don't even have to type a password for 15 minutes. So it's very easy to spend money. They do take 40% in the UK and EU, which they I've not seen it mentioned anywhere, but they just do, which is a bit annoying, but I guess that is higher over here. If you want to claw back a few more percentage, you can get an affiliate program. So it's like Amazon affiliates. If you mention a book, you link to Amazon, you get 5% or whatever. I think with this you get 3 extra percent, but it's something. And any time you link to your app, you link via that. So Social Media Cafe Liverpool iPhone app is a real app actually. It's something I've coded up, and it's available. Sorry. The video link. They didn't like the video link. Because it was downloading potentially large files, and it might do that over the 3G network, they rejected it. I changed it yesterday morning and made it so that it would check if you're on what type of network you're on, and if you're on a cellular network, it would say you can't view the video. I asked for an expedited review, which you can do, and it gets you right to the queue. You can't do it too often, otherwise they get annoyed, but you can do it. And they ignored me for 24 hours, and then earlier tonight said, okay, we'll do an expedited review. As far as I can tell, that hasn't happened yet, or hasn't even started, so it'll be available very soon. But it has all that content. So it has information about some of the Social Media Cafe events. I need to update it to have all of it, but it will have that information, and it should get updated. So if you can get any better than that, well, it's open source. So I've made the app itself open source, and I've made the hierarchy app that I was talking about open source as well. So if you think that looks quite nice, and you think it'd be nice to have an app like that, you can do it. You can make one for free, really easily. You just have to change the XML files. It's simple as that. I mean, there's a lot of people that will sell you an app that does not a lot more, and they probably have a similar thing where they cookie cut a brand new app for you and charge you £5,000. You don't have to. Just download this and make the changes yourself. If you want to, if you want some extra little features, feel free to get in touch, but you can do this yourself. They're both licensed under the artistic license, which means that you can actually pretty much do whatever you want. You don't have to say on iTunes that you're using this code or anything like that. But if you do make the source code available to someone else, like to your client, you can't modify the source code to say to hide the fact that it came from me. So that's pretty much the only clause. And just FYI, I'm looking for interns for the summer to do some Ruby on Rails development and some iPhone development. Should be really interesting hopefully for them. So if you or if you're interested, or if you know people who might be, then get in touch with me. And also I'm available for work. Thank you.
Anyone got any questions they want to ask John? Neil?
You don't have to answer this question, but it was just to get an idea of how much you can make on an app. You know, average you can make on one of your apps.
But I've got like a complete, basic sat nav. I call it the fart app of navigation because it's a silly app. All it does is you enter a location you want to go to, like in the sat nav, and it says, and then you start walking. And if you go towards it, you're getting hotter. If you're going away, you're getting colder, and it tells you that, and that's all it does. That's made thousands of pounds. And all it does is say hotter and colder. So, a key thing is to get into the charts. So you do lots of marketing, make sure you're in the charts. I read today that World of Goo, which is a great app for desktop, recently come out on the iPad, they found that from going from second position to the first position, the number of app downloads doubled in one position in the charts. So if you can get into the charts, more people will see you and you'll sell them. So it depends on the app. If it's a popular app and people are willing to pay, then you can make money.
Cheers, thanks.
Francis.
Now that Android phones are outselling iPhones, have you made any Android apps? And also, is there a good way of making apps so that you write once, but you get a pretty good version on both platforms?
I have an Android app that I've just about finished. It's not out yet, but it will be soon. It's an Android version of one of the iPhone apps. There are ways to do it, and it basically consists of making an app using HTML or JavaScript and then wrapping it in a native wrapper. So it's like building a web page, which obviously is good if you have experience of building web pages because it makes it doubly easy. And then you can distribute it to iPhone and Android and potentially other platforms. And there are packages that make that even easier. They do the wrapping bit for you. So, yeah.
Have you tried any of those?
I haven't tried any of them, so I can't specifically recommend. The way I did it, I just did the jobs in HTML myself.
And when are you going to be doing a presentation on how to develop an Android app?
When health is over.
Damn.
Any others? No, that's it. John, thank you very much. Yes, now almost time for documentally. We'll just wait for the techie bit.
Okay, let's who's got the password? Andy?
Well, these people are supposed to talk to the guy on the Skype. How's he supposed to hear it? That's what Andy just said to me, and that's where we are.
Oh, right. He can hear. He's watching. He can hear.
Oh, I see. So he can hear.
And I'm on mute. Are you still mic'd?
No, I'll go on mute.
All right. Okay, good. That is unmiked, unmuted. Okay, so while we find out the password for the laptop, so we can then start Skyping documentally, otherwise known as Christian Payne. Oh yeah, that's it. We did forget to put the a microphone in, although he's watching online at home, so he can always do that. We can still hear us, I've picked up the wrong piece of paper. We just need to add him as well. And sort out the microphone. But we'll just tell you about something which I meant to mention at the top of tonight, is the Hackspace Liverpool. And it's for anybody that's wanting to learn about physical computing, Arduinos, 3D printing, laser cutting, or electronics. And that's going to be taking place here on the Wednesday, the 16th of February, from 6:30 for a 7 p.m. start. There's some leaflets like that just outside on the table. If you want to grab those, then you can do. Okay. Okay. Save. Add. Somewhere. There we go. That's not working. That'll be because I'm guessing. No, the buttons aren't working. Hold on. No, add people. Okay. I need to search for him unless he can find me. Okay. Ooh. Okay, talk amongst yourselves. Don't worry. Talk amongst yourselves. Yeah, come on. Oh, go on. Come on. Yeah, it should be, yeah. Is he online? Are you there?
No, he's having a problem.
Okay. How are we getting on? Hey! We'll just sort you out and get you on the big screen. And then we'll let Alistair sit down. You can do, yeah.
Oh, I see. So that's what the cable is.
No, we can't hear you. No, we can't hear you yet. Do you want this one? Okay, we're going to do this whole thing by the medium of sign language. Yes, and we can hear you now. Okay, good. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Brilliant.
More than we have.
Yeah. 4 or 5. Away you go.
Christian, hello.
How are you doing?
Hi, I'm Alistair. I'll be interviewing you in inverted commas tonight.
I can't actually. Can you get mine up? I can't actually hear you that well.
Yeah, I'll use that one. Yeah. There we are. I've changed mics. Is that better?
Can you hear Neil then? When Neil was talking to How about this one? Can you hear this one better?
No, you can't hear that one.
Okay. That's me. There you go. Let's try that one. There you go.
Stand up and project.
Stand up and project. There we go. Christian, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Not bad at all. Thank you very much for speaking to us tonight and for staring at us all on a terrifyingly large screen. We'll start off, I think we'll just start off because Social Media Cafe, we want to try and get an idea really of how people got into social media, I guess. It's a bit of a general question because of the amount of stuff you do, but what was your social media wow moment? What was the time when you first thought, wow, this is good?
I guess it's more what found me around social. Okay, there's two moments: social media moment and social networking moment.
Yeah.
For me, the social media moment was the first time I was ever really sociable with my medium. That was on returning from Iraq with a handful of photographs, thinking I was going to sell them, make loads of money in the newspapers. I sold them to the newspapers, but I was a little bit confused as to how they pay about it for photos or something. Unless it's a celeb, that's a shot. So I thought, hang on, can't live in this, maybe I should just take the earning money equation out of this. Somebody said, make a YouTube video, make a slideshow, put your pictures together with some music, walk over the top, bit of a narration, put it up on YouTube. Way more exposure than if I was in all of the daily newspapers for a month. So I thought, okay, I'll just cut out the middleman, produce content onto YouTube or wherever the eyes are, and that was my power social media. Social networking would occur to me, Crash Mark, 2008, and every network simply bursting into Dutch video on now but 60, one of the many other video platforms I decided not to do video.
And Christian, if we can go back to the beginning, because you mentioned then about your time in Iraq taking photographs. Take us through your life story. You were a scientist originally, weren't you? What was it that led you on into photography?
I really should update my LinkedIn profile. I remember being a thinking I did physics for a very short amount of time at university before I just wanted to do something else. Pure maths, I just really didn't get on with it. So I kept around and started traveling for about 10 years. So I went from lasers, Gauge lasers and CO2 lasers, where I just dragged myself into it because I loved science fiction and I thought I could build a laser gun. Once I saw the power supply that we decided wood and just cut some time apart. I know that because we do that. And I thought this is practical. I can't this around the streets and be a native I kind of got a bit disillusioned with engineering and just decided to travel there. I guess where I got my inspiration to be around people, try and document. Although 10 years of travelling, I was primarily artistic, but not a documentary of any kind. I didn't buy a camera.
And you started off your photographic career, didn't you, in local newspapers, in fact? I'll try again a bit louder. You started off your photographic career working at a local newspaper, didn't you?
Yes, I did. It was the first. I walked into the Leamington Observer and said I was a photographer, knowing nothing about photography. But luckily for me, on the day I went in the photographer that they had wrote both Ferraris and Carr. So I got a job.
Fantastic. Now, Christian, you've already talked about a couple of the sort of the different social networks you use. One thing that it's quite easy to notice about you when you visit one of your websites is you've got a presence on an awful lot of different networks of various kinds. Is that something you'd recommend, being on everything there is?
No, because I mean, if you want to look at the event, I don't know, I accidentally got into the documentary name, and that stuck. You think people should keep that avatar the same, so that when you do crop up different platforms, you're easily recognised and people connect to that. It's really, really difficult to know what is going to be interesting. I tend to go around my network. My network adjoining platforms, and I've taken as much time as I can connecting with people that I care about, and I hope mutual. So if you nurture your network, you tend to move around like this. I guess because I tell stories and share a lot of my life, I adhere to the top, but I found really, really people, some amazing early adopters, some love-friendly guests, and people really striving to be there, and I tend to go there and go.
It's almost a loaded question, really, given how many different things you use, but is there any one network or one social networking tool that you value more than the others?
Quite a difficult thing for me to talk about one. There is a social media toolkit that I will use. Twitter, to a certain extent, is the backbone, spine of everything that I'm part of. But strangely, for as socially as Twitter is, you try and talk to people that create Twitter, you try and have a conversation behind. It's just so massive and driving out, so you kind of get to the roots of it. Maybe that's led to organization. I still respect what it does. Twitter, although Morrin, no doubt my brain is the networks of what the next big thing. But at the moment, it's quite important to discuss time. So, WordPress, just the amazing blogging platform, and so I can on both of those. Oscars are just so easy. Audio do have a serious place in and the more I fall in love with it. I started off doing podcasting before. Really, I was sharing about amateur kind of thing, basic HTML written, but I was full. So if you find a podcast, it's home anyway. Definitely each. And the way that you can absorb audio and do the thing, people headphones on, get inside people's head and they get inside yours, sort of connect with more people, possibly without them knowing, for absorbing their story, their understanding, their documentary through audio than I do with video. It's strange. I see so much video that just kind of flashes by my eyes, and people, how some people, especially at work, they'll just close the phone. They'll have headphones on, and then under the screen, popping up, they're doing stuff, and technically always watching that video. So audio definitely plays, has a serious place in my part. And with location-based apps, if I have to pick two, I'm still with the one, but so frustrating that people can't see things that I see. It's prettier, it's better. I like either posting to Foursquare and Facebook Now, don't think those apps. And if you have an iPad and you see it for a while, now it's got a lot of love into it.
I actually work at the Liverpool Daily Post and Echo, and there's some of us are on Twitter, some of us aren't, and there's still, I think, a lot of cynicism about it and about social networking in general. One of the criticisms that keeps coming up is this idea that social networking as a way of fixing people to their computers, if you like, staring into their computer screens, cuts people off from each other. What's interesting is that tonight is a social media gathering in which a lot of people who didn't know each other before have met each other through Twitter and such like. And it's also interesting that you, in a lot of what you talk about the way you want to share people's stories and bring people together. I mean, would you say that social networking is a great way of bringing people all over the world much closer together?
It's an interesting one because I did some work with the British Council around social. Going back to what we talking in South by Southwest, but in the tips in the title called how social media helps cultural relationships. Social media and the connections we're making online, sharing our media in the way we do, definitely brings down barriers. I connect with and meet more people, I hate this term, in real life, just at the internet. And since I got involved in social networks and social media, primarily I was either stuck in a job or stuck in a village, you just make more of an effort. I get maybe in content later on. I'm always trying to find people with interesting stories that I want to absorb and want to share. So it's done absolute wonders for me connecting with lots of people, and I've seen connections out. It's very similar to the old photojournalism argument when I got back from audit from the United Nations documenting the fight of Iraqi refugees. I wondered, is this actually going to make a difference? In this instance, I was very, very lucky because it did. It humiliated the Jordanian government. It's doing something that people that suddenly featuring all over the internet face the refugee now have goods and have face. So that, I think, is really small in the larger scheme of things. And there are so many different ways for us to use social networks. We all focused on it as being a digital bridge building society, then make a hell of a long way back.
Segueing politely onto broader geopolitical issues almost. I mean, we'll all have seen the role that social media played in the disturbances in Iran a couple of years ago, but also right now, as we speak, on the streets of Cairo, with the question even tonight about whether President Mubarak is about to go or not. I mean, does all these events at the moment in North Africa, does that show the power that social media really can have?
You kind of have to There's a lot of people just watching, absorbing, not doing anything. Until there's USB plug when you're watching the box on you punch in the head and fix what's going on. I think that a lot of people that's kind of empty. They won't connect with this problem. It's no different to watching movies on television. I shouting at the watching not yet filled yell at and go at least talk out for myself whether any of the stuff I saw when I'm not saying let's rush out from that, there's very little we can do, but there are organisations out there using social media almost getting dragged down, really can do this on now. So we do need more campaigns, we do need people perhaps more than just science fiction and by the timeline of Twitter before I think that get anywhere close to the potential of it, if that's not too hard. It great beliefs and they great big in the ground, voices that they could never have dreamed of before. You see, more and more people realise that not only their camera, keep video cameras, and suddenly tell everybody what's really going on. That's and scared. That's why we got huge. That's why desperately need to keep control as much as we can. Keep it public domain. As much of these connections we can, but already we're losing.
Okay, Christian, and back onto tonight's event, onto social media. Obviously, one of the many things you do is tour the country, talking to people about how better they can use these various tools that they all now have at their disposal. And I guess with the audience in front of me tonight, I've got to ask really for hints and tips. And I guess you've almost got so many that it's hard to make a start. But what would you say are maybe, I don't know, the top handful of things that people should think about nowadays when they're trying to promote themselves or their cause using social media? What would you say are your top few social media tips for anyone looking to start right now to build their presence online?
People don't necessarily want to speak to brands or organisations if they're keeping everything next to behind them. I would say take it slowly. One tool that suits you well, if it's video, there's audio transcripts, but too thinly, unless it's slow, everything. And listen as you can. Most of the times I feel really good about doing it when I say some really small and insignificant look back to me, and they kind of realise that this is actually quite a serious thing. I'm not just talking about all sorts of stuff. I think it's equally don't listen to small talk. The small talk needs to be enables us to have that rapport, create that rapport, make the ego to be a thing. But listening, I think, is enough, especially like people like myself who's always and just throw the back and maybe get some stuff off their chest or something. Brain and mind out to sit down and listen, comment on other people's and pay attention to what they've said about it, how noisy it would be.
All right, well, Christian, thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry we can't spend longer with you, but that was absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much for your time. Got it? No? Got it? Got it? No, that's it. Thank you very much once again to Christian. Thank you all very much for coming along. Thank you, of course, to all the organising team for putting on tonight's event. A round of applause for the organisers, I think.
Thank you. That was good. No, that's great.
and see you all next time.
Oh yeah, see you all next time. Thank you very much. Sorry we didn't have any time for any questions, as we've got to be out of here in 9 minutes. But thank you. Pub, the Everyman. Yeah, pretty much obvious. Thank you.